History has a tendency of repeating itself. Could this be true? BBLs, implants, uncomfortable clothing, and other beauty trends are becoming common despite their risk of death. Victorian women did the same. Victorians had an obsession with death and actually thought that it was attractive for women to look sickly or dead. Talk about dying for fashion. Just like various activities in the society, fashion discourages social stratification and reduces the gap between the high and low class. Fashion makes people look the same. Now let's dive into some of the fatal beauty trends during the Victorian era. Before we move forward, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to History Mystery. Tuberculosis look, consumptive chic. Tuberculosis was considered attractive. This notion came as a result of how patients with tuberculosis looked. Its complexity, accompanied by a lack of scientific knowledge at the time, led to a paradoxical state of beauty and death. Tuberculosis is a contagious infection usually attacking the lungs. It can also spread to other parts of the body like the brain and spine. It spreads through droplets when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or spits. The general symptoms of the disease include fever, infamously chronic coughing, and the spitting of sputum containing blood, night sweats, weakness, as well as weight loss. This weight loss that came with the disease is what women of the Victorian era sought after. Crazy, right? Hold your thought. Scientists in this era thought of tuberculosis just as something in the air, more likely caused by the victim's own constitution, either physiologically, psychologically, or both. It was not believed to be contagious, hence those suffering from the disease were not avoided. Victorians romanticized tuberculosis because it enhanced those things that are already established as beautiful in women, such as thinness and pale skin that result from weight loss and the lack of appetite caused by the disease. Sparkling or dilated eyes, rosy cheeks, and red lips were also common in tuberculosis patients, characteristics now known to be caused by frequent low-grade fever. Victims slowly wasted away, becoming pale and thin before finally dying of what was known as consumption. Due to the so-called attractiveness that came with the disease, it was believed that being attractive made one prone to tuberculosis, like they are being punished for being hot. The disease was later nicknamed consumptive chic. The peak of this so-called consumptive chic came in the mid-1800s, when fashionable pointed corsets showed off low, waifish waists, and voluminous skirts further emphasized women's narrow middles. Middle and upper-class women also attempted to emulate the consumptive appearance by using makeup to lighten their skin, redden their lips, and color their cheeks pink. The second half of the 19th century ushered in a radically transformed understanding of tuberculosis when in 1882, Robert Koch announced that he had discovered and isolated the bacteria that caused the disease. By then, germ theory had emerged. This is the idea that microscopic organisms, not miasmas, cause certain diseases. Koch's discovery helped germ theory gain more legitimacy and convinced physicians and public health experts that tuberculosis was contagious. Preventing the spread of tuberculosis became the impetus for some of the first large-scale American and European public health campaigns, many of which targeted women's fashions. Doctors began to decry long, trailing skirts as culprits of disease. These skirts, physicians said, were responsible for sweeping up germs on the street and bringing disease into the home. Corsets too came under attack, as they were believed to make tuberculosis worse by limiting movement of lungs and circulation of blood, as well as causing deformities to the rib cage and spine, affecting childbearing and even chocking. A more healthy option of corsets was developed, which was elasticated to alleviate pressure on the ribs caused by the heavily boned corsets. Men's fashion was not left out. In the Victorian era, men kept luxuriant beards, sculpted mustaches, and extravagant sideburns. This fashion trend could be credited in part to the British soldiers who grew facial hairs to keep warm during the Crimean War in the 1850s. This trend was also popular in the United States, where razors were difficult and unsafe to use. However, this trend died out with the coming of Koch's discovery. Men adopted a more clean-shaven look. The Victorian ideal of looking consumptive hasn't survived to the current century, but tuberculosis has had lingering effects on fashion and beauty trends. Once women's hemlines rose a few inches at the beginning of the 1900s, for example, shoe styles became an increasingly important part of a woman's overall look. And around the same time, doctors began prescribing sunbathing as a treatment for TB, giving rise to the modern phenomenon of tanning. Arsenic baths. Once again, the struggle for the perfect complexion led Victorian women to extremes. Makeup, hair products, and perfumes are not a modern discovery, but have in fact been in existence for centuries. While different cultures and time periods have interpreted their beauty standards differently, the Victorians took this to a whole new dangerous and deadly level. Arsenic is commonly used as a poison to kill rats, but in this era not only rats were attracted to this chemical, but Victorian women too. In the Victorian era, it seems as though all beauty purchases should have come with a buyer beware warning. For years, arsenic has been a popular cosmetic ingredient despite its known toxicity. The Victorian era had two main makeup looks: 1, the English rose; 2, the painted lady. The main goal of the painted lady is to appear as pale as possible, standing as a reminder to the rest of the society that her privileges have afforded her the opportunity not to have to work in the sun. Victorian women soaked in the dangerous arsenic wafers to keep their skins pristinely white, remove freckles, pimples, and tans, making women appear younger and more attractive. Although the dangers of arsenic were well known throughout the world, it was still an extremely popular ingredient in everyday products, including dyes. As we know, a garment is a physical representation of not only you, but your family's status in society, and specific colors can represent varying different things. Victorians were green with envy. With a penchant for bringing the outdoors in, emerald green became an increasingly popular color. What was the secret to this pure emerald green color, you ask? Mixing copper and the highly toxic arsenic trioxide, or white arsenic, together. Absurd. This dye was used to make the greenery of fake plants pop, to color fashion gowns, color wallpaper, dye fabrics to cover furniture, etc. Many believed that they would be safe from the effects of these wallpapers as long as they refrained from licking it or stayed away from the green colors. However, even if left untouched, arsenic could flake off of the wallpaper or even form arsenic gas if the room became damp. While bathing in arsenic is not as deadly as ingesting it, it has the potential of causing and exacerbating the symptoms it was meant to cure, such as irritation and redness. Perhaps more dangerous were the fumes rising from the warm waters. According to EPA, chronic inhalation of arsenic fumes poses a wide range of health risks, from pharyngitis to lung cancer. Just yesterday, everyone wanted to look transparently white. Today, everyone wants a tan. Let's not only dwell on the obsessions of Victorian women with beauty, men too had their own fair share of beliefs on arsenic. For years, men saw it as a primitive form of Viagra that increased male sexual potency. In small doses, it caused a euphoria and delirium, which made people get addicted in both chemical and psychological sense. Let's dive into another shocking and fatal trend. Radium makeup. To look as natural as possible was every fine Victorian woman's goal, and fear of being pegged as fallen. The main focus was to whiten their complexion. Owing to this, they used little eye makeup but focused on sculpting and filling their eyebrows. This meant they could get away with homemade creams above their eyes to make them pop. However, other women did make light brown eyeshadow from cold cream and crushing cochineal beetles. It was rare for women to wear eyeshadow, then called eye paint, purchased from beauty stores, but when a daring Victorian lady and prostitutes decided to try eye paint on special occasions, she was slathering her face with deadly chemicals. These included red and white lead to color the paint, as well as mercuric sulfide. The cosmetics also contained antimony, cinnabar, and vermilion. These chemicals poisoned the body, and mercury is even known to cause insanity. Lip paints were made from carmine, crashed bodies of beetles and other insects, which were boiled in ammonia, hence leading to nerve palsy, causing paralysis. Note here that carmine is still used in cosmetics like lipstick today. Nightshade Eye Drops. Apart from their near-dead complexions, women with tuberculosis were known for having dilated pupils and watery eyes. When someone is in love, their pupils dilate as well. In Victorian-era England, women with large pupils were considered extremely beautiful. To achieve this look, they would use eye drops containing nightshade from the belladonna plant. The belladonna plant is one of the most poisonous plants in existence. Consuming a couple of berries or a leaf can be fatal. In smaller doses, the poison may cause irritable bowels, rashes, swelling, and even blindness. Women of the Victorian era knew of these dangers and continued to use this poison anyway. If looks could kill. In her later years, Queen Victoria used belladonna drops in her eyes in an attempt to get rid of her cataracts. Although the drops did not cure her condition, her eyesight still improved because her pupils dilated. So she continued to use the eye drops and refused to have surgery. Could we say keeping up with beauty trends is fatal? Leave a comment on what current beauty trends you think will raise eyebrows in 100 years from now. And while you are at it, do not forget to like, share, subscribe as well as check out other videos.